Joining me on the programme is Varchas Patel, who is a victim of the scandal. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Varchas. And you know, people might imagine, I've heard various people kind of conflating the Mr. Bates and the Post Office ITV drama with The Crown, as if it's been somehow fictionalised. But you are a real person, this is your real life, so it would be excellent if you could just tell people what happened to you, what happened and when did it happen?
Right, so it wasn't me, it was my father. My father was the postmaster. He was wrongfully convicted in the year of 2011 by post office. After they audited my father, they found apparently a £34,000 shortfall in his Horizon system versus what he held as cash and stock. Immediately they thought my father was on the fiddle, he was suspended. But and following that, there were a number of interviews, so-called investigators of post office, but they did absolutely nothing. One of my father's investigators, he said to my father, "Well, you're the only one, Mr. Patel," and we've obviously seen that in the ITV drama. All of these postmasters were, or at least most of them, were continuously being told, "You're the only one having issues with your system, and you are contractually obliged by the sub-postmaster contract to make amends."
And tell me what it was like behind the scenes in your family home when your father suddenly finds that he's £34,000 short. One of the sub-postmistresses I spoke to on the programme yesterday said the most she'd ever been down in her entire life was £100, with one exception. It was once £700. Suddenly, it was £7,000. The next week, £14,000. She'd never, ever been short of that kind of amount in her entire career. Obviously, she couldn't believe her eyes. She couldn't see how this could possibly have happened. What was it like for your father when he was told you're £34,000 short?
Well, that's a good question, but in the case of my father, this actually goes back 2 years prior to his audit. He was experiencing profound shortfalls from, well, between 2008 and 2010. And these shortfalls were literally in their thousands. So on one occasion, my father had to cash in his Royal Mail pension
Yeah.
to shove that money into the post office. And then on another occasion, he had to ask my mom to sell her family heirlooms. So that's gold and jewelry. And these heirlooms have been passed down for over 3 generations.
Yes.
From my mother's grandmother, my mom's mom, and it really should have gone in the next generation towards my sister. But um, uh, my dad was cashing in all these assets to make good all these shortfalls. And then when so there were two systems. There was the Horizon Legacy from 1999 until 2010. And then in 2010, they started rolling out the Horizon Online version. It was meant to be an upgrade, but in fact, it was still more or less the same piece of kit with bugs, errors, and defects. So when the transition happened, the balancing was accurate 100%, because that's because my dad had put in nearly £45,000
Wow.
prior to the transition. Now, when it came to August 2010, when the upgraded system was installed in father's branch, well, after cashing in his Royal Mail pension and asking my mom to sell her family heirlooms, dad, he wasn't prepared to sell any more things, assets. So dad, between August 2010 until December 2010, just kept rolling over, just like rolling over the system. But he wasn't putting any more monies into the system. If my dad had about 2 or 3 months or 3 or 4 months, he would have made those losses good and resigned honorably, because between August 2010 and December 2010, he was actually trying to get out of the post office.
I mean, it's
But then,
amazing, isn't it, that you use the word honourably, because, of course, he is an honourable man. He did behave honourably. Anything that appeared to be dishonourable or dishonest was completely false and absolutely the fault of the Fujitsu system foisted on him by the post office, not his fault at all. So what happened since then? What's happened between then and the present day, briefly?
sorry, could you repeat the
What's
question
happened
again?
since then? Between then and the present day, what happened next?
Okay, so in 2010, father's shortfalls were in excess of 75,000 pounds. He was
Wow.
prosecuted. Once he was wrongfully prosecuted, his physical health started to literally deteriorate.
Mm.
Father walks with crutches. He's got collapsed discs. He's got a heart condition. His health is shattered. The villagers were, well, some of the villagers were horrible to my father. They literally wanted to drive mum and dad out of the village. Um, uh,
So when we talk about, a destroyed and shattered life, I mean, it's your father we're talking about, somebody you love and somebody you care about, somebody who was just leading an honest life, making an honest living, providing a service to the local community. And the man you've described is physically broken, financially broken, his honour destroyed. As you say, the subject of loathing and contempt by the people that he helped in the community he lived in. Your sister's rightful, jewellery and heirlooms that she should have been able to inherit and pass down to her children, sold to make good a debt that he hadn't incurred, a loss that he hadn't made. I mean, sometimes people hear you and other members of families and those people themselves who are victims of this post office scandal, and we almost can't believe you're not either screaming or crying. You're not shouting and shrieking in anger or weeping and sobbing, because this is all so extreme. These are, the lives of human beings who've done nothing wrong and who, in most cases, have not been exonerated, haven't had decent or, if any, financial compensation, and are still living with the aftermath of something they never did in the first place. It's almost amazing your composure, really, in the light of what you've all been through.
it, since father's wrongful prosecution, and given when Alan Bates started the group, the 555 group, and the way it grew as well,
Mm.
post office has had ample opportunities to correct this huge injustice.
Yeah.
At one point, they even had a mediation set up, I believe, in 2013 when Second Sight were involved. Once they started to find issues, boom, they were sacked, and a huge cover up was pursuing it. Post office truly should have done the right thing in 2013 and 2014.
So
Paid everyone.
we're 10 years on. Has your father received financial compensation of any kind? And if he has, is it the right kind of amount? Nothing.
Zero. My father is one of the ones with an overturned conviction. He should have been offered an interim payment of £163,000.
Mm.
Post office and its lawyers have refused it by
Why?
stating by stating my father and four others with overturned convictions are suddenly public interest cases. Post office
Oh
are
my
trying to
goodness.
say Horizon is not intrinsic to the prosecution. Uh, we take no liability. Essentially, what they're doing to not only my dad and four others,
Yeah.
essentially what they've said to them is, see you in court."
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It is absolutely appalling. And I'm really hoping that this ITV drama, which is absolutely ridiculous that it needed something of this kind to draw attention to this dreadful story, but I hope that it is going to have some knock-on effect for your family. Will you please give your father my deepest respects and express our deep concern over what he's gone through? Thank you for joining me on the programme.